Hey, I'm Jeff Perkins. These are the Soundstripe Sessions. This is a podcast about the space between inspiration and execution. That's where the real story lives. We sit down with world-class creators and storytellers to unpack the craft, the creative decisions, the roadblocks, and the breakthroughs that shaped their best work. For anyone who makes things and wants to make them better. Today, I want to welcome Aaron Sprinkle to the podcast. Aaron is a senior staff composer here at Soundstripe and a record producer, a musician whose work goes back decades. He produced MXPX's debut album as a teenager and has since produced and engineered and mixed records for artists like Anberlin, Pedro the Lion, Copeland, Reliant K, and Demon Hunter. These days, he writes and releases music under more than a dozen different names across just about every genre you could think of, from indie rock to electronic to cinematic scoring. He's contributed 648 songs to the Soundstripe catalog, which have been downloaded around 1 million times. So, Aaron, great to see you. Welcome to Soundstripe Sessions.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. All right, let's go back. I want to hear the origin story. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up.
I actually grew up where I am sitting right now, which is on a small island in the Puget Sound called Vashon Island. It's a ferry-only 16-mile-long island, and it's a very, pretty much like, I would say the majority of my peers' parents were hippies. So it's a very creative, focused, art-centric community where marching to the beat of your own drum was highly encouraged. And I discovered my desire to make music at a very young age. 3rd grade, I think, is when I started actually thinking about how music was recorded and produced. And just sort of also had kind of an aptitude for the technical side as well. So was able to sort of, mad scientist together some ways to record at home with the limited resources I had due to, finances and just it being the 80s. And the rest was kind of history. It was just, it's just one of those things where I was going to do it because I couldn't not do it. So, how or why, the why was because I could not do it. I had to do it. And then the how was just like, we'll figure that out as we go. Kind of.
Yeah. Were your parents musicians?
Yeah, they're both musically inclined. My dad is a very talented guitar player, musician, singer. My mom plays and sings as well. So, it was just a very music-centric house growing up.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the early influences.
Well, I mean, I had this sort of breakthrough moment in 3rd grade from, it's a story I've told a few times, but I'll tell you a quick version of it. I saw someone with a Walkman, and I'd never seen a Walkman before, and I was intrigued by it. And so when I finally got a chance to, his grandmother let me listen to it. So she sat me down at a table and brought it over, and she just grabbed a cassette and popped it in, and she hit play, and it was Lovely Rita off of Sgt. Pepper's, and it completely changed my entire life, just those few seconds. And I didn't even care about the Walkman anymore. I just was completely, I had an epiphany, I'd never experienced music that made me feel that way before, and I'd never had so much mystery and intrigue behind it. And I've honestly, at the root of almost everything I do and have done since then, I've been chasing that feeling that I got from that moment.
Yeah. What instrument did you start with?
Technically piano. We had a piano in one of the houses I lived in, and it was just, just figuring out songs by ear, probably like 6th grade. I had started kind of playing guitar before that, but I my hands were just too small to really do much with my dad's, Martin D35. So, and then I did switch over to guitar in 7th and 8th grade when I discovered The Cure and U2 and Echo and the Bunnymen and all the bands that kind of formed my later, really those like formative records and bands of the mid and late 80s. Because that, guitar was king of all that stuff. So guitar became my main instrument. But it was always, the interesting thing is I was never a guitar player for the sake of being a guitar player. It was always for the sake of making a song. I would learn how to play guitar enough to be able to, realize some idea I had. And that, that's how I became a recording engineer and a mixer and a producer and, all the different things that I do are just so that I can have that finished product. That's the end, and the means are just, whatever I have to do to get there, kind of a thing.
So lessons, did you take lessons or are you completely self-taught?
Yeah, no lessons. And, I definitely went through periods where I felt insecure about that. And then I also went through periods where I felt like, if I were to get lessons, it could ruin me or whatever. And now I've just sort of landed it. This is just my path. This is just how I got here. There's only been a few times where it's hindered me, really, especially when I lived in Nashville and people start throwing Nashville numbers around. And I'm like, I have to stop you. And like, I just have no idea what you're saying. Like, I can play you. If you name a chord, I can play it. But I can't follow along with what you're doing here. But yeah, it's all discovery for me. It's like I hear it first in my head, in my imagination. I hear it, and then I figure out how to play it on the keyboard or the guitar or whatever kind of a thing. But yeah.
So you're growing up, you're just self-taught on all these instruments. You're kind of teaching yourself also how to produce music. And then you kind of get into your teenage years, you start producing for bands, right?
Yeah, basically I went from having made this hilarious contraption where my uncle had given me an 1/8-inch stereo, reel-to-reel, and I had this cassette deck, like a component style one, and I had cut these wires and taped them together so that I could play one of those things and mix in either a vocal or a guitar or something and bounce it to the next one at the same time. But no mixer. I just literally like taped wires together. And so I'd bounce back and forth, and that was the extent of my multi-tracking capabilities. And then I got access to a studio right out of high school, which is where I really cut my teeth as far as learning on real gear. And I immediately started recording bands, friends from high school, and I was in a band at the time called Poor Old Lou, and we were recording, and playing shows, and that's how I found MXPX. They happened to kind of open a show for us, and I offered to record them for free if I could give the recording to my friend Brandon, who had just started this label called Tooth and Nail. And so that sort of that I basically realized that I preferred being in the studio to being on the road. So, and the only way I could make any money doing that is if I was producing other bands. And then I realized that I really loved that. It was like really fun for me to help them realize their vision and like, to be, as my friend Craig says, to be the rock star to the rock stars is like really fun. And it's very rewarding for me. And also, I never made a dime playing shows or music, like being in a band cost money. Not that I was making very much money producing back in the start, but yeah. And then that just sort of one thing led to another. And, I find myself, decades later, having been, produced hundreds of full-length albums and, I was this apparently an integral part of the mid 2000s emo scene, and I was just making records. I was having fun with my friends, and like I didn't know, but it's it's just like I said, it's that I can't not do it. I have to do it. So I'm going to figure out a way for it to make sense to do it. That's the only way I can kind of look at it.
Yeah. So you get hands-on with recording equipment and mixing in high school, and then, but did someone teach you that, or are you still all just self-taught, just tinkering and
pretty
figuring it out?
Self-taught. So definitely like osmosis, absorbing things. The first multi-track recording I did that wasn't on a 4-track cassette, I rented a 1/2-inch 8-track from a friend, or he wasn't even a friend at the time. He became a mentor to me, but and just set up in a room with my band and recorded it. I just understood the concept of it, but I'd never practiced it, and it turned out pretty good. And but then my band got signed to a label in California when I was 19.
Which band was this?
Poor Old Loop.
Okay.
POOROLDLU. And so I got to start working with other producers and engineers, and so it all happened really fast. It kind of it's actually wild to look back on, like, that time of my life, like these crazy things that in my memory I think, oh, that was probably over the course of 3 years, were like 3 months. It's just wild. But like doing a record with someone else, learning from them enough to get in the studio and do this MXPX record or this other band, and started booking studios and doing full-length records. But I'm definitely someone who can only learn by doing. I can't. If you sat and showed me everything, none of it would absorb into my head at all. I have to just do it and figure it out as I go. And I also really would just, I wouldn't say lie to people, but like when the labels would be like, you know how to do this, right? I'd just be like, yeah, knowing that I would figure it out, but I didn't actually know how to do it. When there's a will, there's a way kind of a thing.
Yeah, they had that fake it till you make it moment.
100% fake it till. I have a shirt that says that I currently own. It's like my favorite. But yeah.
So you're growing up, you're 19, you're part of a band that gets signed, you're doing music for other people. Was there ever a time though when you were like, this isn't what I'm going to do. I gotta, I gotta get a real job. I gotta go, I gotta go get my CPA. Was there ever that,
Not
or was
quite
it always
that
like
far.
all in?
There was a couple moments where things were rough. It was like, and I did end up I did some temping in the 90s, which was hilarious. And I'm so glad I did it. And then I did get a job. This band I was producing, like 3 of them were graphic designers at this software publishing company called Sierra Online that did like Half-Life and all these awesome games in the 90s.
I remember Sierra. That was a great little gaming company back in the day.
Yeah, so I got a job there doing graphic design, packaging, pre-press and packaging design, because that's the only other thing I'd ever done for a living is graphic design. And I still do it now. But so that was a year of really the first kind of real normal job I ever had. And it was still kind of creative, but it was really important, I think, for me. I learned some really great stuff from my manager just about time management and organization and stuff like that. It was really cool. And but from there, I actually quit that job. I gave my notice at that job to go work at or not work at, but to run the studio that Tooth and Nail Records had built. And even though the owner, Brandon, who I've been friends with forever, told me no when I asked him if I could do it, he said no. He said, I want someone, a little younger that doesn't have as many responsibilities. I had a kid at that point, and he didn't want someone that he felt like if he couldn't pay them, that he would be ruining their life, basically. But I quit my job at Sierra anyway, and I just showed up and said, I work here now. And he just was like, okay. And then I ended up, that was when things really went crazy with that's when I made all those records and did all that stuff that, like, just kind of blew up. That was 2001. And, if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't be here right now. I know that for a fact. But it wasn't even like I thought it was some crazy thing. I was just like, oh, of course I'm doing this. Like, didn't feel that weird to me. Now when I tell people that, they're like, that is crazy that you did that. But like, I didn't even think of it that way at the time.
But, walk me through that time and talk a little bit about like what led up to it, right? Like what contributed to, like, you kind of had this, I mean, that was kind of the time you hit, right? You broke through, which, because when I talk to musicians and artists, a lot of times you're just toiling for years. It's the old, it took 20 years to become an overnight success story.
Right. Yes.
But, what led up to that? And can you like pinpoint anything during that time? You're like, that's the reason that it all hit.
So I had this job at Sierra Online that was, really the first time I'd ever made any consistent money. It was not any kind of life-changing amount of money, but it was, and I liked the people I worked with. And I had actually resigned myself to the fact that I was not going to do music anymore, at least not anything other than a hobby. And I'd kind of gotten to, this was way before I was even aware of any sort of mindfulness kind of practice or anything like that. But I gotten to a point where I had accepted that, and I was actually at peace with it. I was okay. And within a month, I quit that job and was working at this studio. And it was like I needed to go through that to reorder the why, to reorder the priorities, to understand that if I was striving too hard or too needy or my head was in the wrong place, it was gonna fail. There was no way it was gonna work. But if I kept that passion at the forefront, that thing where I can't not do it, if that was what was leading me, then that was the only way I could have anything that resembled success from doing this. This was not known to me at that level until later on, but I do believe that was sort of the mechanism that was happening at the time. And the funniest part is, literally 3 weeks after I left, Universal bought Sierra Online and laid off every single person in the building that I was in.
Isn't it amazing how that
Yeah.
that works out when you think about it? Wow. So take me into some of those rooms you were in as you're working with these bands. What was the vibe like at the time? I mean, you guys kind of, you really struck a very unique sound with the kind of what they call the emo sound at that time. And you seemed to be the guy that was the producer for the emo sound. What were those sessions like? Take us inside.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've thought about this more in the last few years than ever because of this nostalgia boom that's happened from that era. And, a lot of it came from punk and then pop punk and then kind of bringing that melancholy melody sort of thing into that world, marrying all those things together. So I felt like as a producer, I wasn't really aware of any scene, really. I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking, okay, these guys have some really cool melodies and some huge guitars. And, I came from this sort of, punk was a huge part of what I cut my teeth on too. So it was just, but I love a good hook. I love a good melody. And so the being able to bring those two things together. And then to me at the time, it felt like there was no guardrails. Like we could do whatever. The only thing that was sort of guiding me is the bands would bring CDs in and be like, hey, we really like the drums on this or the guitars on this. And we would I would be like, okay, I want to keep it in that general wheelhouse because I want them to feel so excited about it and feel like they're on, in the same sort of level as their idols or these people that have inspired them. But it felt very Wild West at the time, like we could do anything. And It wasn't until 20. It was really funny. There was this. I was doing this record in like 2017 with one of those bands, but way later on. And one of them came in and said, "Hey, this BuzzFeed article just came out that said why." The name of the article was hilarious. It was something like the 11 records that prove that 2005 was the best year for emo. And I had produced 3 of them. And I literally out loud, unironically said, "I'm an emo producer." Like it had never hit me until then. Because I wasn't thinking that way. I was sort of trying to really do right by everything that was in front of me and also kind of beat the last thing I did. That was sort of my mentality at the time. So it was, but I really value everyone that I'm in the room with, right? And I always think, no matter what your level of experience or the age gap or anything, I can learn from you. And I'm always trying to learn. And that's one of the most exciting things about collaboration to me, is getting to learn and soak up someone else's either talents or views or workflow, or just they're looking at the whole thing from a different angle. Like, that's super exciting to me. So I'm learning so much from all these guys. And, when it starts out, we're similar in age. I might be a little older, but then as it goes, they all stay the same age. These new bands coming in are young, and I'm getting older. But I'm still learning just as much from them. Working with, when I did that Isley record, when I first worked with Isley, I think Stacy was like 14 years old or 13 years old. And when I first did Anberlin, Nate, the drummer, was like 16 years old or something like that. I'm working with some young people. This band, Poema, that who actually did some stuff for Soundstripe. I did her and her sister's band's first record. I think she was 16 when I did that as well, back in the day. And but these kids, that youthful thing that they have, that thing where they don't have that jaded lens that they're looking at the world through. We have so much to learn from that, right? Because the older we get, the more we sort of we kind of get stuck in our ways. And I never wanted to do that. I always would tell people, it's the second I'm my way or the highway guy, I'm going to quit doing this, because I have lost. And so I try to keep that feeling of learning.
So you're taking a very collaborative approach with the artists. And I think what I'm hearing from you, and probably what makes you successful and good at what you do, is that you're not coming in and having kind of a bias against the artists, even if they're young, right?
No. And there's a thing that I realized too, that all the records that really hit, that ticked all the boxes, are the ones where I was basically in the band when we made the record, where there was the egos were left at the door. Everyone was looking at the same horizon. We're all trying to do the same thing. So if I wrote a part on the guitar, for instance, I would just play it. And it wasn't me trying to get the spotlight. I didn't care what the credit was. It was just like, why take the time for the guitar player to learn it and everything, and just let's keep the flow going. It's all about keeping that flow going. And when I feel like that latitude to where no idea is stupid, or at least not so stupid that I can't say it. Plenty of ideas are stupid. But, that's when we're really cooking with gas, is when everybody's just in that collaboration mode. And for me, it's not a thing about, unfortunately, a lot of people in the music industry do that type of positioning so that they can hear that thing right there? I did that. That's me. I thought of that. I did that. That tambourine on that chorus, I thought of that. And I really didn't have that. I never thought of it that way, because and this is a little bit of, my insecurities probably benefiting me, is I never really saw myself as superior to any of these people in any way. I always felt like, I'm so lucky to be in this room with these guys doing this. Wow, this is awesome. And ooh, wouldn't it be cool if I could help them, or they could help me, or we could do this thing together, and where the sum is greater than the. I always get that thing messed up, but you know what I'm talking about. Greater than the sum of the parts, that kind of a thing. I like that, and it always works the best. And as soon as I'm questioning myself, as soon as I'm second guessing myself, thinking, oh, they might not like this, or they might think this is stupid, then that's when things kind of go south. Because you've got to be able to have that unbridled creativity, But at the same time, and this is something as a mature-ish adult I'm learning, is I think one of my superpowers is I can also be very decisive. I can be like, that's it. Now we got it. We're moving on. Because I think that a lot of creative people are crippled by indecisiveness. They cannot move past that they could do anything here. Well, that was a good take, but what if I did it again? And then they do it again forever, and they never even finish the song, and it never gets released, and no one ever hears it, And so I think being able to be like, oh, we got it, let's move on. Because, again, I'm so focused on that end product. I can't wait for people to hear it. I want people to feel something when it's coming out of their speakers. I want that emotional reaction. That's the only reason I'm doing this, is that connection and that emotional reaction. It's like music is a drug. It's the most powerful drug in the world to me. It can instantaneously and repeatably make you feel something, and you can go back to it again and again and again, and no hangover.
Well, it's going back to your Walkman experience when you were young. It's
100%.
You want to recreate that experience for everybody with the songs you're working on, right?
Exactly. I do like to share beautiful things with people. I do. Yeah. It is something that's really important to me, and being part of that is like, what? That is the craziest, most incredible, wild thing that I could even, if I could do one moment of one song that made somebody feel something like that, that's what life is all about, But to get to do that, it's the same reason I love cooking. It's exactly the same reason that I love making food so much. It's that emotional response and that feeling and that community and that camaraderie or whatever all around it. It's beautiful. I love it.
Aaron, does your style work for everybody that you collaborate with, or sometimes are you in the studio with someone you're like, this just doesn't fit, my style doesn't mesh with their style?
No, and I risk coming off as a little bit, I don't know, elitist in saying this, but I don't mean it this way at all, because I'm not dogging any way that anybody else does things, but there are a lot of people who on the outside would look like they do the same thing I do, but when it comes down to it, fundamentally, they do not do the same thing I do. They might be a multi-instrumentalist, producer, engineer, mixer, recording artist, performer, but they do not do the same thing that I do. What that comes down to is the differentiation between the means and the end. That's all it really comes down to. Is what might be a means to me might be an end to them, or vice versa, or we might have completely different ends, right? So, for instance, if somebody's end is to make a hit song that goes viral, not only do I think that that's the wrong way to make a hit song that goes viral, I don't care about that. I do care about it. If that happened, I would be super stoked, right? That would be amazing. I like success. I like money. I like all those things. I'm not an idiot. I'm not saying I'm like some, whatever hippie person that doesn't, I don't care if it makes money, but I truly don't believe that is even how you do that. I don't think that there's a formula, and I don't think chasing other stuff is the way. And without name dropping, somebody that I know that I've worked with that is one of the most successful people in this world of producers and songwriters told me that very thing, that all of his biggest songs he just made because he loved them. That's it. Because he thought that they made you feel a certain way. And he wasn't chasing anything. And he said every time he chases a hit or a big thing, he's like, you're never even going to hear that song because it flopped. So that is a thing. And then, you know, some people also are just too close to what they're doing to be able to relent any sort of control over to someone else. You know, even to the point of like, hey, if I suggested a melody, they'd be like, nope, I don't use melodies that anyone else suggests. I just do that myself. And every variation of that has happened, and it's fine. And I've even made some really awesome records in those environments. I just have to adapt to my style of how I'm working to some other thing. It becomes more of a work in that sense than an artistic expression. And I think some people are afraid to use art even as an adjective for what it is we do, because there's this connotation that art is like isn't commercial enough to be direct. And I just totally disagree with that. I think all of my favorite artists that are some of the most popular artists in the world are the most artistic artists. And I think if your vision is clear, there doesn't need to be any distinction between something that's really easily exploited and something that is completely creative at the same time. I think those two things can totally live in the same space.
Yeah. You know, what you're saying though reminds me of episode I listened to of the Broken Record podcast where Rick Rubin was talking about the Tom Petty's Wildflowers album.
One of the best ever.
And he was talking about, you know, Tom Petty was coming off of Full Moon Fever, right?
Right.
Mega hit. Yep. Produced by Jeff Lynne. Mm-hmm. Jeff was a very, very precise producer. Like yes. It was the way he wanted it. And it produced a great album, epic album. And then it wasn't working for Tom though. And then Tom went with Rick Rubin for Wildflowers. Totally different approach.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Rick's not a musician.
Literally the antithesis approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And produced an amazing album. And so it's interesting when you talk about that, just like different producers for different projects, for different artists, it probably all works in some ways. It's just a matter it probably comes down to the collaboration. Do you have that collaboration you need at the time to get the output that you're looking for?
Yes. The variables are infinite, right? Of how granular you're going to get in one area and how hands-off you're going to be in another area, and how but that's also part of the appeal to me, is every single record I've ever done was a different experience and looked different. Even if I did 2 records in a row of the same artist, they're different. And I don't like doing things one way and repeating them. I go out of my way to make sure I don't do something the same way twice, because again, like, texture is so important to our experience as humans, I believe. That's why things that like are overly perfect get really boring quickly to us, because there's no texture. It applies all across the board to film, art, music, everything. And that texture and that human aspect of music is absolutely important. And it scales to any genre, even electronic. They're like like I always say this to people: can you picture a human playing that part or making that part when you're listening to it? Do you picture a human being doing that? Because if you don't, you are not going to care about that. You will not care about it. And that's not a choice, right? That's just who we are. If and a human could have made it, but if it doesn't feel like a human made it, it's probably not going to have a lot of legs.
Of everything you've worked on, because you've done a lot of albums, songs, what's the one thing you point to and you're like, that's the one I'm most proud of?
Well, that changes a bit based on where I'm at. And I also literally sometimes someone will be like, I love this record you did, and I'll be like, oh, I forgot about that. Literally. Like I don't have any memory. But there's a record I did for this band called Joan Zeta that's called Cruel to Be Young. It was actually a flop, technically, which I can tell you, I believe is what the reason is because it's so different than their first record that they probably should have changed their name. But it is definitely in my top 10 favorite things that I've got to work on. And the way that I judge that is if I can A, listen to it recreationally and just enjoy it, and B, almost feel like I can't believe I got to work on that. That's crazy. Pedro the Lion Control definitely is in that world. I really, really like the One Republic song I produced called Life in Color. I think that is a really good song, and I am really proud of it. I mixed it and everything, made the whole track, and it was a really awesome opportunity to get to work with them. But I'm actually really proud of it too. I think it's great. And definitely like Acceptance Phantoms from 2005 is a big one for me. And that's the one we just did a 20th anniversary re-record of it where we got a bunch of cool features on it, including Teddy Swims and some other cool people are on it. And that was a really fun record to remake. It was actually more work, I feel like, to remake it than it was to make it in the first place. But that's probably just because I'm old now. But you know, it's funny because there's stuff. And one more that I do need to mention that I really love is I did this record with this guy named Corey Crowder called Gold and the Sand, I believe is what it's called. And it's kind of a country Americana thing. He ended up years later becoming a massive songwriter, like huge, like country songwriter, tons of number ones. Sweetest guy in the world, lives in Nashville. But that record is special. And that is another one where it came out on Tooth and Nail, which was just the total wrong label for it. Did not do that well. But it's worth a listen. It's really cool. I got to work with some of the best musicians ever on that record too. But yeah, I mean, they're all kind of my babies in a way, you know? So like I love them all for different reasons, you know?
Yeah. All right. Well, since we're talking about music, let's talk about songs you've done for the Soundstripe catalog. Like I said, you've done about 650 songs for the catalog. They've been downloaded 1 million times. I pulled a few here. So the first one is a song called Tore Up. And this is under your, this is a proper Aaron Sprinkle song. So it's under your name. The way it works at Soundstripe is Aaron will has different monikers, and so sometimes it's Aaron Sprinkle, sometimes it's Neon Beach, sometimes it's Tiger Gang. There's
I think this
12 of them.
Would have been a Tiger Gang song, but I believe Tiger Gang, I hadn't even thought of that moniker yet, so I think that's the only reason it's not a Tiger Gang song.
Okay,
but yeah.
So Tore Up is your all-time most downloaded song. So let's take a quick listen to this one. All right. So do you remember making that song?
Yeah, I do. I remember, definitely trying to get that Gary Glitter vibe a little bit. That triplet thing, which is fun. I feel like, I just felt like I think if my memory serves me, I felt like, we could really use a song like this. And, speaking of Jeff Lynne, there's definitely some Jeff Lynne influences in there as well with some of those sounds. And Just that kind of 70s fuzzy guitar. But then I wanted the chorus to just be like massive, right? Because I'm always thinking about one of the really fun things about doing these songs for Soundstripe is I imagine this filmmaker person that is using this song. Every time I'm making a song, I imagine kind of a use case for it. And, just having it be big, but then hit even harder on the chorus and just really kind of open up. With the stomps and stuff, I just thought it would be, I feel like that style of song, which, there's a word that we use in the biz that is hilarious to me now because it's overused, but that swagger thing, it just never goes out of style. Like, it will never stop being something that a good amount of people are looking for. In some ways,
perfect. It's perfect, like Dodge, Ram, Chevy.
Totally, yeah.
Tire,
or like your barbecue vlog or whatever. Like all of this stuff, but it doesn't surprise me that it's my number one song, and I think it's a fun song. I mean, I think it turned out good, so I'm happy that people are using it and that people like it. I mean, being useful is the best part of Soundstripe, pretty much for me. It's just because I'm basically collaborating with people that I'll never meet, and like this, there's a sort of unlimited possibilities of collaboration out there, and that just sort of being in the ether in that way is really fun.
Yeah. Okay, I have a dog barking. I'm going to let him kind of bark himself out. Do you hear him?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Nothing major.
This microphone's good. It picks up everything. Okay, I think he's done. Okay. All right, so the next song is called The Rain. It's by your moniker here is Midnight Daydream. What's the vibe you're going for with Midnight Daydream?
So Midnight Daydream moniker was conceived to put like my lo-fi hip hop and moody kind of hip hop based music under. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right, well let's listen to this one. Nice. So talk a little bit about what you were trying to do with that song.
I think the reason I love lo-fi, anything lo-fi in general, before lo-fi hip hop, before the term lo-fi became synonymous with lo-fi hip hop, there was a lesser known genre of lo-fi indie music that was intentionally recorded, quote unquote, poorly, and it pulls at these emotions. This dusty feeling, this sort of attic discovery sort of in the background. And so it's almost a sound design approach even to an extent. And it's really attractive to me. I love beat-based music. I love sample-based music, going back, to the 90s even when people were just, using a MPC and a bunch of records to make music. And then combining that with this dusty, scratchy vibe, it really is a recipe for massive emotional manipulation. And that's very attractive to me. Honestly, this was one of the first lo-fi hip-hop songs I'd ever made. Probably maybe the second or third one. But it wasn't really out there for me to make it. I'd made plenty of hip-hop songs and done plenty of at least lo-fi elements to be intuitive for me, and it's very satisfying music to make. Like I don't listen to dubstep, but I love making dubstep. I don't listen to drum and bass, but I love making drum and bass. And there's certain things like that, and this is one of them. I don't really put it on in the background. I do understand why people do. I totally get that, but it's fun just to think about this being used in a video or someone studying to it. It's just a fun thing while you're making it.
Yeah, it's always surprising to me that it usually pops as like one of the top 3 genres people are searching for on the platform. And I think my hypothesis around that is just it's got kind of a gritty, authentic vibe to it. It's like you kind of hear the record needle on the vinyl, and I think people like that because it feels authentic. It doesn't feel maybe overly produced or like it's just all electronic. It's really it's got like there's a guy who actually there was an artist who actually made this, and you could kind of feel that in the lo-fi 100%. Songs.
So this is a good example of something that wasn't technically played by a human, at least at this point, but you feel the humanity in it. You really do. And I think you're totally right. And I also think that it's a genre that doesn't get in the way of whatever whatever picture you're putting it to, or even VO you're putting it to. But it also doesn't take itself too seriously. It's not like overly dramatic. You know what I mean? Like a string bed would be, or some piano thing would be, like kind of make you like sad or something. It doesn't make you sad. It kind of makes you feel like it might be raining outside. You might have a fire going in the fireplace, but I think it does not surprise me that it's so used, because I think it's a powerful tool for filmmakers.
Yeah. All right, the last one, this is actually a personal favorite of mine in the catalog. This is a song called Breakthrough, where you collaborate with an artist named G. Smith, who's a rapper, and this is under the Neon Beach moniker. So let's listen to this one.
God bless, we're breaking these runs. Life too short to play it on speed run. Only get one, no option to rerun. With Babylon goes who hide to reach them. Down to earth, stay grinding when storms come. Rat race, only one to run from. Better say cheese, but say split in the funds. Living in the moment, I ain't worried about none. I'm straight chillin', back against the wall, too acquainted with the feeling. Like you lost the ball, find a way if I'm willing. Only fear God, not sweating his lost children. Price on my head, exported a few trillion. Doing side missions, whatever I'm feeling. I'm built different, cruise with no ceiling. Sun shining on me, boy, I'm indifferent. Go! Come on, let's go.
All right, that's a fun one.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about making that song.
That song was really fun for me. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, that kind of crate digger music production from the 80s and 90s. People like everything from the Beastie Boys to Fatboy Slim, as far as like taking records, sampling loops from records, and arranging them in a way that you're creating a whole new thing. Now, because of the fact that I can't legally use records, this is where it gets really fun for me, is I either have to find samples that kind of sound like a record, or I can manipulate to sound like a record, or I play things that sound like a clip or a chunk of a record. And I go through this painstaking process of doing that. And I even have plugins that emulate the sound of the samplers that they were using in this era, and that I run everything through, because I really wanted to have that authentic feel to it. Because, again, that music hit me so hard when it came out, and it made me feel the certain way. So I'm really chasing that feeling. And it's a really fun style of music to make. It's something that is used a lot still in the sync world. That kind of music is even the stuff from back then, and it's so it's fun for me to throw, to be able to add to that availability of tracks for people to use, and to add stuff to the Soundstripe catalog that can give people that same kind of feeling as those classic songs.
Yeah, one of our customers, a large technology company, they like the song so much they brought G. Smith, who's the rapper on it, and they featured the song in a commercial, and they had him actually performing it, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
So cool. Yeah, that's a great one though. It's
and he was great to work with. He totally got the vibe I was going for and loved it. So that he didn't. we didn't fight at all. And I don't mean, argue. I mean, there was no resistance from either of us. It was flow.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the process. I mean, at what point as you're writing, you're in the studio, you're laying down tracks, do you just know you have it? I mean, how do you kind of see that as you're working through ideas? So
I'm going to sound like a broken record a little bit here, but it's how I feel. It's 100% emotion based. How is this making me feel what I'm hearing out of the speakers? And if I can all of a sudden switch from the person making it to the person experiencing it, then I know I've got something right there. And if I can switch, I call it fan mode or producer mode. When I switch over to fan mode, there's something there at least worth chasing. And then resistance is a huge thing too. I generally don't think, for me, for my workflow, that fighting through things is very productive. I really have to, because I don't see this process as much of me making something as me unearthing something. I'm discovering something that wanted to exist already, and I'm just sort of, like David's in the marble. I just have to chisel him out. But I really is how I feel about it. And as long as I can get out of the way of myself and get my brain out of the way, get that, imaginary committee in my head, try to ignore them a little bit, not completely, but a little bit, then I know I'm onto something. And, working for Soundstripe for, it's been over 8 years now that I've been doing this with Soundstripe. And it has truly been one of the greatest things of my life to do this, because I get to exercise my imagination in ways that I never got to in the studio with these bands, because I get, like you said earlier, like I've got over a dozen monikers across all these genres, and I would have never got to make this music before. There wouldn't have been a reason for me to do it. I could have, if I had unlimited time for fun, just sat down and make some of this music. But now that there's a purpose and it can be useful to someone, and someone can go, this is exactly what I was looking for. Oh my goodness. Like that, just that being a possibility to me is enough fire for me to be able to do this. And so, getting to work with G, or getting to do Snowbones with Adrian, or getting to do, all the Neon Beach stuff, my Moses Kid Americana thing that I'm doing now, like all these opportunities to make this music that is coming from a really true place of creativity in me, because I'm trying to pass that baton on. Like I'm hoping there's someone there to grab it that really gets it, and it can really enhance whatever project, whether it's their podcast or their video or their wedding or whatever, their graduation video. I don't care. Like there's nothing it's all important to me. It's all just as important. It really is, because it's that person that gets to experience that feeling where they made something and it's making them feel that way. To be able to be a part of that is a huge honor, honestly. And I've learned so much about myself and about music, and I get to find out about genres that I didn't even know about, because I'll get an assignment about some weird genre and I'll be like, okay, I guess I get to figure out how to make that, and it's awesome. It's just so cool.
So when you're creating the song, though, I mean, how long does it take? Is it just quick? Or, I mean, are you get in a studio and 2 hours later you have a song, or are you coming up with concepts and then letting them marinate and coming back to it? And I mean, give us a sense of that.
It's a little bit of both. So the bones of the song come really fast, and then I will step away from it. And I can finish, before Tore Up, my biggest song was a song called Escaping Light. And it literally, this was back when I mixed my own songs. It was mixed 2 hours after it didn't exist. Like it went from not existing to being mixed in 2 hours. And that can happen, right? But lately, the way I've kind of settled into this workflow is I could finish this song in 4 to 6 hours. I could finish it. But if I wait a day or two and come back, I'll do another 15% guaranteed to it. That'll just take it up another notch. Because I'll get that knee jerk. Because I'll forget about it. I won't even remember how it went until I listen to it again. And then I'll get those knee jerk. I'll get like a second layer of those blink instincts on it, which is very cool to be able to do. And then some songs take way longer because I care about them. You know, especially if there's top line involved. If these Moses Kid songs where I'm singing or the Snowbone songs, I think they might take longer because I might spend 3 days on the lyrics. You know, because I don't have the ability to make a throwaway song. It just is not in my DNA. I can't do it. So, you know, you could say some people could say, well, you know, it's just for sync, it's just for micro licensing, it's just for whatever. Just phone it in. I mean, cool, bro. I just can't do that. This is not, you know, it's not. I don't know why, and I'm not saying that to brag. It's, you know, it's probably not the best thing for me that I can't do it. But so yeah, some of them take longer, and then, you know, being sort of your typical neurodivergent ADD person, I've learned to not force things. I need to wait for the inspiration to hit. Otherwise, I'm just going to spin my wheels. I cannot tell you how many songs have gotten to the point where you would probably scream if you saw, like, every year I will put a folder of 30 or 40 songs in the trash and empty the trash on my computer. Because if they're not clicking, I just toss them. And I might even have gotten 80% on these songs, but I'm like, nope, this is not good. So I just toss them.
But what's it's just your gut though, is telling you that this is just not there. It's not,
yeah,
it's nothing that
it's the only thing I can go by. I think it's why I'm a record producer, is I can say, that's not done. That's not right. That's not good. We're not there yet. And sometimes it's so not there that it's better to just start over. There isn't, because you can always write another song. You can't be too precious about your songs. So it's that weird balance of like, I'm not going to phone it in, but I'm not going to be precious about it either. I'm going to, you know.
So you've lived through probably a lot of different iterations of the music business. You know, from the 90s to today.
Yeah.
Obviously everyone talks about AI music today. Have you played with it? Give me your sense of, you know, your feelings around that. I know there's tons of negative, some producers like it because it maybe gives them a head start, they use it as a creative thought partner, but you know, where do you fall on AI?
Well, so if you were to go to my Substack, in my bio, it says I am an anti-AI creator. So that's gonna inform a little bit about what I'm about to say. Now, that is a very broad brush description, and I do believe the term AI gets used too much. There's not a lot of distinction between, you know, machine learning and LLMs and AI, and, you know, people used to call like NPC behavior AI in video games. So like it's a little bit too big of a label. I do not believe that inherently, if a tool makes you be able to do something you couldn't do otherwise, or do something faster, I do not believe that qualifies it as inherently good. In fact, it could be a sign that it's bad, right? So I know that I'm going to be a minority here, but I want to disclaimer what I'm about to say, that I believe my viewpoint on AI, even if it's not the majority viewpoint, let's say in the corporation of Soundstripe, is an asset that someone like me is in Soundstripe, I do believe has a value and is important. I don't think you can have just everybody, then you get an echo chamber. If you have no resistance to these types of things, you get an echo chamber. Now, you can edit out any of this you want. I do not care. You can edit out whatever you want. But I think that thing where I said, can you picture a person making this? Can you picture a person playing this? Is so important that when the novelty of AI-generated music wears off, I think there will be a use for AI-generated music always. And it's not going to go away. I do believe that, unless there's like literally an apocalypse or something. But I don't believe it will, at least for a long time, have a place in recreational listening of music, the people that intentionally listen to music. So this is a huge distinction for me. There are passive listeners of music and active listeners of music. People that seek out music to get that emotional response, right? And then there's people that say, Alexa, play cooking music. And they just, play music, or Alexa, play music or whatever, right? So like those people probably could care less who made their music. And I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody. I'm not judging that, okay? But I don't make music for those people, personally. I make music for people who are engaged in what it is they're listening, who kind of take it seriously, who feel like that's my band or that's my song. That's what I want, right? So AI has no place in that for me, personally. I have not personally played around with it, but I'm not a Luddite. I'm not afraid of technology. I've always been pushing whatever I do to the brink of what I can do with technology. But when the tool is replacing the magic, I have no interest in it whatsoever. Like that defeats the whole purpose. Like I would rather just not do music. So that's how I feel about that. It is, and I'm taming it way down right now for this platform. But I'm not one of these people who's just inherently against something because it's not how we've done it in the past. This is, this is how we used to do it, so we can't do it any other way. I don't buy that for a second. Not at all. But I will say the one thing I'm grateful for about this AI-generated music is it's making me re-examine what it is that makes music human and get back to those things. And really okay, what is it that really matters? And to focus on that and to find that's a commodity. There's value in that, in this human-made music. And we know anecdotally, we can see that creators that are professional creators that make movies or music or film, they don't want anything to do with that. They do not. They might use AI to do their captions or summarize their Zoom calls or, do all that stuff. And that's fine. That's whatever. But all the big film studios have a no AI policy across the board, right? At least they do right now. That's probably not going to last forever. But because of greed. And I believe greed is what's propelling the arms race right now, 100%. I think it's ridiculous. But I also believe that it will level out. I do believe that. I do believe that we've already been through this massive shift in the music industry, right? To where, there was a few artists on major labels and then independent artists and people were selling CDs or tapes or whatever. Now we're in this there's 8,000 subgenres of every genre, and you can find your tiny little subgroup, and you can be successful in that little space, right? And this is just going to push us maybe farther into that for a little bit, but I believe it's just going to be fine. Because why people want music, at least in this corner that I feel like I'm part of, isn't going to really change. That's not going to change. So, and I have to be optimistic about it because, like I said, I can't not do it. I'm going to keep making music, so I have to be. Will AI replace some of the aspects of what it is I do? Probably. But I can't be afraid of that. I mean, fear never did me any good.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great perspective. I think, you have to, you have to learn these technologies, but at the same time, I mean, I think that's the thing I really appreciate about Soundstripe is that, some of our competitors are like, they're doing prompt-based music creation on their platforms, and we are not. And we're very intentional. We use AI a lot in our business, but we do not use it for music. We use it to help you find the music. We use it to make smarter search.
There's a huge distinction between those two things.
Yep.
Massive, right? And like, I get it. Everybody's got to use the tools that are what's available and what's happening. And I'm not a software engineer, right? I don't understand. But I can visualize, whoa, if I didn't have to push code ever again, that'd be kind of crazy, So I get that. But Soundstripe, at least right now, has a pretty clear, we do not tolerate AI-generated music. And that is a huge asset to this company, because the people that we are making music for also do not tolerate it. So we would alienate people if we started using it. I know that for a fact. And we don't want that. That's about good PR, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
We did a survey with our customers, and just in the survey, we asked a question like, are you interested in AI prompt-based music creation? Just because we wanted to gauge,
sure,
attitudes. Like, are they interested in it? Are they trying it?
Good data.
And immediately, one of the people that got the survey went on social media and took us to task. he's like, Soundstripe's coming out with AI music, and I was
insinuated
like, no,
a little too much from the question.
Not.
Yeah,
we're
that's
just
funny.
asking if you're interested in it or if you would use it. Just trying to get some market research.
Sure.
And but just mentioning that actually created that kind of response. So it was really interesting. Aaron, what do you say to young artists today who are coming up in a very different environment than you came up, and maybe there's not as many opportunities, or if there are opportunities, you have to be really good on social media. You have to build your own audience. I mean, what advice do you have for young artists coming up today?
A big one. So I actually do still kind of mentor as many. I love mentoring people, and I take as many of those opportunities as I can. And one thing, there's some reoccurring themes that I keep sort of coming up. One is, a lot of these young people are learning how the technical side of making music from YouTube. And there's sort of this general message on YouTube that there's a correct way to do things and an incorrect way to do things. And that is hogwash. Okay? And your mic is the least important thing, right? The idea is more important, right? And how and the end. Like, does the song make you feel the way you wanted it to? It doesn't matter how you got there. It really doesn't. Like, from a technical standpoint, I need this mic or this computer or this DAW or this plugin or this mic pre or this compressor. Just stop thinking that way. Figure out your why and really invest in that. And then I think chasing what is popular is usually, it seems intuitive, but what is popular probably wasn't chasing what was previously popular. It was just someone saying, how can I be a little, like, I like to use the term upsetting. How can I upset what's happening right now? And I don't mean upsetting and like I'm angry about it, but rocking the boat, being provocative, being disturbing in the literal sense, like disturbing the ecosystem. That's actually what you want to chase more than what's currently at the top. And then the number one thing is something I've already talked about here earlier, is to stop trying to be something you're not. Be 100% authentically you. Make your songs for you. Make them so that you feel that feeling when it's coming out of the speakers. And that's going to up your chances of other people feeling that same way. Because if you try to make a song for this imaginary committee in your head, or this imaginary, or even someone if you think, oh, maybe they'll like this if I do it this way, that's pretty much always a recipe for failure, in my in my experience.
That's great advice. And I think we could end it there. Aaron Sprinkle, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you,
Jeff.
everyone, for listening.
fun.
Remember to like and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform, and we will see you next time. Soundstripe is the leading music licensing platform, offering the highest quality music produced by award-winning artists and innovative tools to find the perfect song for your project. Soundstripe has over 100,000 audio tracks along with sound effects and video assets. We provide comprehensive licensing coverage, whether it's a broadcast TV spot, social media video, or podcast. Soundstripe helps turn an average video into an unforgettable story. Learn more and sign up for a free account at soundstripe.com.